Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. OPEC representatives reach landmark deal to reduce oil output. Group reaches agreement after months of wrangling and announces first oil output cut in 8 years. Move propels crude prices. United Nations tightens sanctions against North Korea. UNSC imposes cap on the country's coal exports, its chief source of hard currency. Sanctions enforced after Kim Jong-un's defiant nuclear tests. Deadly plane crash in Colombia kills 71, 3 footballers, 2 crew members and a journalist among survivors. Brazil's Chapecoense football team on board doomed flight. Officials say plane was out of fuel when it crashed. Donald Trump embarks on a victory tour in key battleground states that ensured he won the presidential polls. US President-elect hints at what Americans can expect under his administration. Well, OPEC representatives reached a landmark deal to reduce oil output, propelling crude prices after months of wrangling and market uncertainty about the ability of the once mighty group to strike an agreement. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries said on Wednesday that it would cut production by 1.2 million barrels a day from 33.6 million barrels. Here's a report. The oil cartel OPEC has agreed its first supply cut in 8 years in order to boost the price of oil. Mohammed bin Saleh Al Sada, OPEC's president, said a cut of 1.2 million barrels a day would start from January.
The agreement that OPEC reduces approximately 1.2 million barrels a day to bring its ceiling to 32.5 million barrel per day, effective 1st of January 2017.
The move comes after more than 2 years of depressed oil prices, which have more than halved since 2014 due to a supply glut on the market. The price of Brent crude jumped 10% to $51.94 a barrel, and US crude rose 9% to $49.53 a barrel after the announcement.
This is a major step forward, and we, with my colleagues, we think that it is a historic moment to come to this agreement, which will definitely help in rebalancing the market, and it will help reducing the stock overhang.
In addition to the production cut by OPEC members, non-OPEC countries will be expected to reduce production of 600,000 barrels a day. OPEC did not list which countries these might be, beyond saying Russia was prepared to cut 300,000 barrels from its output of more than 10 million barrels a day.
The market needs to be rebalanced. Rebalancing the market would need courageous decisions from OPEC and with the support of some key countries of non-OPEC.
The deal comes after oil ministers agreed to a cut in principle in September, which would have limited output by about 700,000 barrels a day while allowing Iran to increase production. But disagreements between Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, and Iran led to doubts an agreement would be secured. The Saudis were hesitant to shoulder the lion's share of a cut, while Iran had resisted reducing its own production, arguing it had yet to recover its output levels after years of sanctions. At Wednesday's meeting, however, Saudi Arabia agreed to cut output by about 500,000 barrels per day, a total reduction of about 4.5%. That will take its output to 10.06 million barrels per day.
Only one country which for reasons we can understand that is Indonesia. They are net importer, so they could not participate, and they suggested to participate in the reduction, and they would like to freeze or suspend their membership.
Still, questions remain about the long-term impact of the deal and the ability of the group to enforce the cuts. The group has a checkered history of complying with its own agreements, with countries often producing more than their agreed upon share. Analysts said oil traders would watch the agreement warily in the coming weeks. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. For a chat today to talk about this is Rajeev Jayaswal, business editor, Amar Ujala. He's also author of The Lobbyist's Untold Story of Oil, Gas and Energy Sector. Thank you so much, Rajeev, for joining me on the program. As far as the OPEC deal is concerned, first rate cut that they've agreed to in 8 years, what do you make of everything? Do you think that it's going to hold come January?
Thank you, Frank. There are two things. One is, as per your report, there is doubt whether they will hold the ground or not, because from December to January is 30 days, and maybe there are several steps between cup and the lip. Let's go to the history slightly. Why and how fruitful OPEC is in the current situation. Look, initially 7 private companies called Seven Sisters used to control pricing of petroleum products and basically crude oil. They dominated the market till 1970s. Then rose the oil producing government owned oil companies, that is called NOC, National Oil Companies. They formed a cartel in 60s and they started dictating global oil prices. But after 90, they started losing ground to some unknown factor, because producers were not determining price, neither consumers like India. So who were these people? They were speculators. They trade in papers. They don't lift even an ounce of oil, but they dictate oil prices.
Yes.
And look, they are betting on this OPEC thing, that OPEC thing will fail. And currently they are betting on this in the market. So the thing is, OPEC's success of reducing almost 2% cut depends on 5 factors. One is America. The whole thing is Donald Trump wants to become self-reliant, and America is the largest source of oil and gas, especially shale gas. So Donald Trump, if he goes for full throttle, then OPEC is gone. Second factor is Russia. Russia was reluctant, because if you cut oil production, it means that you will lose that much market share.
Indeed.
And later you won't be able to capture that market share. But somehow Saudi Arabian oil minister has been able to coax the Russian government, and they have agreed for 3 lakh barrel per day cut, and another 3 lakh barrel from other non-OPEC countries. But the entire thing will depend on December 9 meeting.
Indeed.
With Russia.
Indeed. Indeed.
So there are several ifs and buts.
Indeed. There are several ifs and buts as far as whether this deal will hold or not, and who might just back out in the end. Or it's not a question of backing out, they just continue to produce how much ever they want to produce, and no one will really know what to do at that point in time. But say, for instance, there is an oil cut. So what kind of an impact really is it going to have on the oil market? What kind of impact is it going to have on non-OPEC countries?
Mainly, it will have severe impact on India. We have already seen about $4 to $5 jump in Indian basket of crude oil. So the thing is, day before yesterday, I was talking to Oil Minister Shri Dharmendra Pradhan. So he said there are several ifs and buts, because Iran wanted to back out. Iraq also wants to hold the ground, and it wants to increase its output. Indonesia may back out. So there are several ifs and buts. However, India is the third largest consumer after America and China. So it holds a significant impact on oil market as well as consumers. So there is some kind of uneasiness which I can see. However, countries like India have cushioned itself with a lot of excise duty cushion. They have raised excise duty, therefore they can provide that much cushion to the consumers. But the thing is, raising price to $55 is easy, but raising it beyond 60 is little difficult. And let's see how OPEC
and why do you say it's difficult to raise it above $60?
Because it is not in hands of OPEC. That is why I gave the history. There is speculators,
Indeed.
those who are playing in the market.
Indeed.
So how much OPEC would have impact? Look, there is no supply and demand change.
Indeed.
It's the same supply and same demand.
Indeed.
So the thing is, even if you reduce supply, there could be some alternative, like shale gas will come in. After $60, beyond $60, shale gas will become viable.
Indeed.
So then it will be losing proposition for OPEC. So OPEC needs to balance their act as much as.
And we need to see what that balancing act will be in the next few days. Thank you so much, Rajeev Jayaswal, for joining us on the program, putting things into perspective for us.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, moving on. Now, the United Nations has tightened sanctions against North Korea. On Wednesday, the UNSC imposed a cap on the country's coal exports, its chief source of hard currency. The fresh penalties, adopted unanimously by the Council, including China, came as Kim's regime advances towards its goal of building a functional nuclear warhead. Here's more.
The resolution imposes major new restrictions on the sources of hard currency, in particular coal exports, that the DPRK is using to pay for its nuclear weapons and its ballistic missiles.
The United Nations imposing its toughest ever sanctions on North Korea, placing a cap on its key coal exports after the state's fifth and largest nuclear test in September. The new sanctions resolution, which was spearheaded by the United States, came after 3 months of tough negotiations with fellow veto-wielding Council member China. It was passed by a 15-0 vote. Under the resolution, North Korea will be restricted from exporting beyond 7.5 million tons of coal in 2017, a reduction of 62% from 2015.
It sends an unequivocal message that the DPRK must cease further provocative actions and comply fully with its international obligations.
The US says the latest sanctions would strip the regime of more than $700 million, dramatically reducing the money it can spend on nuclear and ballistic weapons.
Our government welcomes the United Nations Security Council's unanimous adoption of the Resolution 2321 on Wednesday morning, which includes support from China and Russia in response to the North's fifth nuclear test. We reckon that the Resolution 2321 should be completely carried out in a balanced way. Secondly, the current situation on the peninsula is complex and sensitive. China has always committed to realizing denuclearization.
The US has been warning for months that the North Korea's nuclear capabilities have increased sharply. Pyongyang, on its part, insists its nuclear weapons are a deterrent to US aggression and has brushed aside earlier sanctions which have targeted its weapons exports and access to financial markets. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come, what was supposed to be a historic day for a Brazilian football team turns into tragedy when the plane they were travelling in crashed. We'll tell you all about it on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, 50 days away from his inauguration, President-elect Donald Trump embarked on a thank you tour in the key battleground states that had ensured his victory in the November polls. During the first leg of the tour, Trump spoke of his campaign promises and gave a hint of the economic and foreign policy Americans could expect under his administration. Trump also used the rally to announce his selection of Defense Secretary.
President-elect Donald Trump on Thursday hosted his first rally since winning the election. The first stop in this leg of his thank you tour through key battleground states was Indiana. Here he announced a deal with air conditioner maker Carrier to keep some 1,000 jobs in the country rather than move them to Mexico. He also warned US companies of consequences for outsourcing jobs overseas.
Companies are not going to leave the United States anymore without consequences. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'll tell you right now. We're losing so much. So, one of the things we're doing to keep them is we're going to be lowering our business tax.
Trump then addressed crowds at Cincinnati in the state of Ohio, which Trump won by nearly 9 points on election night. He sent a message of national unity and doubled down on his campaign promises of building a wall along the border with Mexico to restrict Muslim immigration into the US and to repeal Obamacare. Trump also used the opportunity to name General James Mattis as his defense secretary. Mattis is a former US Marine who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Known as Mad Dog, he was an outspoken critic of the Obama administration's Middle East policy, particularly on Iran.
We are going to appoint Mad Dog Mattis as our Secretary of Defense. And he's our best. They say he's the closest thing to General George Patton that we have, and it's about time. It's about time.
The thank you tour is another unconventional move for a president-elect who has delighted in pushing the boundaries of what is acceptable in American politics. The victory lap comes at the same time as Trump puts together his cabinet before his inauguration in January next year. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, Colombian authorities say evidence is growing that the Lamia plane carrying a Brazilian football team crashed because it ran out of fuel as it tried to land. Officials said that the plane had no fuel on impact. The capital, Bogota, was mentioned on the flight plan as a possible refueling stop, but the plane did not land there. The plane plunged into a mountainside near Medellin late on Monday. Only 6 of the 77 people on board survived. Here's more.
The plane that crashed in Colombia, killing 71 people, including most of the Brazilian soccer team, had no fuel on impact. Investigators are now trying to find out why the plane flew under those conditions.
One of the hypotheses that we are investigating and dealing with after not finding fuel at the impact zone in the planes or in the supply lines is that there was a blackout in the motors due to lack of fuel, having motors shut down.
A recording reveals the pilot's final words, telling the control tower the plane was in total electrical failure without fuel. He requested urgent permission to land before the audio went silent. The plane then slammed into a mountainside next to the town of La Union outside Medellin. Only 6 on board the Lamia Bolivia chartered flight survived, including 3 of the Chapecoense soccer team en route to the Copa Sudamericana finals, the biggest game in their history, a journalist and 2 crew members.
É muito triste a notícia que recebemos hoje de manhã.
The news we received is very sad. In truth, we never expected this. There is nothing like this, and it was very difficult. It doesn't seem to be real.
Na área mista, no estádio Índio Condá.
Among the surviving players, goalkeeper Jackson Follman's right leg was amputated, while defender Helio Neto was in intensive care with severe trauma to his skull, throat and lungs. And fellow defender Alan Rochelle had spinal surgery. 2 of the Bolivian flight crew, Ximena Suarez and Erwin Tomiri, were bruised but not in critical condition, while journalist Rafael Valmorbida was in intensive care for multiple rib fractures that partly collapsed his lung.
We saw dead bodies everywhere at that site, and there were people screaming for help. At the top of the mountain where the plane broke into 2 parts, when hitting the mountain, its rear part hung up there. Only few people at the rear part survived.
La gente que quedó arriba sobrevivió.
Chapecoense fans are still reeling from the shock. They gathered at the team stadium in the south Brazilian city of Chapecó to continue mourning the victims.
There is a feeling that it cannot be explained.
It is a feeling of unity. We are trying to spend the last minutes here. I know that this is not going to end. It was a team that marked the lives of each one of us who were here. Beyond the humility that they had, they were practically part of our family because as organized fans, we accompanied them to all paths.
Not just on the field.
Meanwhile, at the crash site, the bodies of the victims were all identified and have been transported to their respective countries. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Well, much else has unfolded around the world this week. Here's a roundup of the other international news of the week in Globe Watch.
General Qamar Javed Bajwa on Tuesday took over as Pakistan's new army chief, succeeding General Rajeev Sharif, who warned India against adopting an aggressive stance in Kashmir. General Rajeev handed over the command of world's sixth largest army by troop numbers to 57-year-old Bajwa at a ceremony held in the Army Hockey Stadium close to the general headquarters in Rawalpindi. Rajeev in January had declared that he would not seek an extension. French President François Hollande has announced that he will not seek re-election next year as he bowed to historically low approval ratings after a troubled 5 years in power. Hollande put a decisive end to speculation in a solemn televised statement from the Élysée Palace in Paris on Thursday. His popularity has hit rock bottom after a term in office marked by U-turns on major policies, terror attacks, high unemployment, and embarrassing revelations about his private life. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has for the first time apologized to the people of Haiti for the organization's role in a deadly cholera outbreak. Haiti was cholera-free until the disease was brought to the country by Nepalese peacemakers in 2010. Since then, the acute bacterial disease has killed around 10,000 people. Ban Ki-moon, however, only said he was sorry for the UN's failure to prevent the spread of cholera and not for bringing it to the Caribbean nation. The cholera outbreak has been blamed on leaking sewage pipes at a UN base as Haiti was already reeling from the devastating earthquake of 2010. Thai Crown Prince Maha Vajiralongkorn became the country's new king, succeeding his much-revered late father, King Bhumibol Adulyadej. He accepted the throne in a televised broadcast following an invitation from Parliament, formalizing his accession. King Bhumibol, the world's longest-reigning monarch, died on 13th of October. The late king was widely seen as a pillar of stability during 7 decades of political turmoil in Thailand. The Crown Prince had been expected to become the next king the day after his father's death, but Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha at that time said that he had asked to delay the official proclamation so he could mourn. South Korea's main opposition parties say they will push for a vote next Friday on President Park Geun-hye's impeachment. The opposition had earlier planned to call for a vote this week on whether to impeach Park over a snowballing scandal involving a shadowy long-time confidant. But they later squabbled over when to do so after Park made a conditional offer to resign.
Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with all the sports news you might have missed this week in sports action. Magnus Carlsen retained his World Chess Championship title with a defeat of Sergei Kryakin on Monday in a series of tie-breaking games. After 12 classical games of chess between Norwegian champ Carlsen and Russian challenger Kryakin, the two remained even, forcing a tie-break series of 4 rapid matches in which each player was given 25 minutes to make moves. Carlsen, known as a strong player in rapid-style chess games, proved his mettle by defeating the more defensive-minded Kryakin in 3 of the 4 games to clinch the overall win. Federico Del Bonis swept aside Croatia's Ivo Karlovic 6-3, 6-4, 6-2 in Sunday's deciding rubber as Argentina clinched a first Davis Cup title with a stunning fight back in Zagreb. Juan Martín del Potro, cheered on by Argentine football legend Diego Maradona, staged an incredible comeback from 2 sets down to beat Marin Cilic in the opening reverse singles to level the tie at 2-2. Left-hander Del Bonis then tamed the big-serving Karlovic as Argentina, runners-up on 4 previous occasions, became just the 15th country to lift the trophy in 116 years. Zinedine Zidane's son Enzo scored 18 minutes into his Real Madrid debut with his first shot for the club. The 21-year-old midfielder was brought on by his father, the Madrid coach, at half-time in their Copa del Rey victory over Cultural Leonesa at the Bernabeu. Madrid won the tie 6-1, beating their third-tier opponents 13-2 on aggregate to reach the competition's last 16. Norwegian teenager Martin Odegaard, who signed as a 16-year-old in January 2015, also made his full debut. Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho has been given a one-match touchline ban and fined £16,000 after he was sent off in his side's 1-1 draw against West Ham on Sunday. The 53-year-old was sent to the stands by referee John Moss after kicking a water bottle in frustration. He admitted the Football Association's charge of improper conduct. It is the second charge for the Portuguese in 2 months after he was sent off against Burnley on October 29th. Mourinho received a one-match ban and an £8,000 fine for that incident. Germany has been dropped from next year's Formula One calendar and the Brazilian Grand Prix is also in doubt. The calendar contains 20 races with Brazil listed as provisional. F1 commercial boss Bernie Ecclestone told governing body the FIA he was still in talks with Brazil's president and could not confirm the race's place on the schedule until January. The Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal, which had also been in doubt, has been confirmed. Germany was unable to complete a deal for the race to be held at Hockenheim. And finally, thousands of people gathered in New York for the annual Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Mayor Bill de Blasio and actors Alec Baldwin and Kate McKinnon helped flip the switch to illuminate the 94-foot-tall, 14-ton Norway spruce with 50,000 multicolored lights. The 84th annual ceremony included performances by Neil Diamond, Sarah McLachlan, Tori Kelly and Radio City Rockets. I'm going to leave you with these visuals. See you again next time.
As autumn